The 90s gave us the hits, but it also buried some of the best. One mob classic dropped the same week as Goodfellas and vanished. Denzel Washington led a noir ignored by the crowd. Nicolas Cage tore through midnight New York and nobody watched. 10 years, 10 underrated standouts. These aren't just hidden gems, they're the ones everyone missed. You walk into any real-deal Irish bar in New York City, mention State of Grace, someone always nods. They know exactly what you're talking about. It landed quiet back in 1990, overshadowed by Goodfellas, same week sucked up all the air. But here's the thing. This movie catches something Scorsese missed. The grubby desperation of Hell's Kitchen. Sean Penn's a wrecking ball of nerves. Gary Oldman actually feels dangerous.
The last skinny ever walked around up here was fucking Columbus, and he only lasted a week.
What are you, some kind of fucking asshole? Or you just taking lessons?
Ed Harris, just cold and steady, every second he's on screen. They weren't playing around. The filmmakers spent months shadowing the real Westies gang, soaking up violence, watching friendships twist, deals go sour, nothing romantic about it. When you watch it now, you feel that authenticity, gritty without trying, brutal without the flex. Still, even today, it's invisible to most film fans. It's a secret handshake kind of mob flick. But the people who know, really know. Quietly, the best mob movie nobody brings up. Overshadowed at the time, but it aged better than anybody expected. Nobody ever calls The Last Boy Scout their favorite, but you mention it to anyone who knows their 90s action, they'll light up. Bruce Willis looks like he hasn't slept in weeks, barely holding it together, and Damon Wayans is right there, talking fast, getting the best comebacks. Halle Berry, quick roll, leaves an impression. The jokes, sharpest you'll find, best one-liners in the business, no contest.
And you were never around. I was lonely.
Buy a dog.
Shane Black got nearly $2 million just for the script, and the studio panicked, tried to soften it up, but the rough edges survived. Everyone in this movie is tired, angry, or both. It's the kind of buddy flick where the buddies barely get along, and somehow that makes it better. The action's messy, nobody's playing hero, and every punch lands with something extra behind it. This never makes the big lists, but when you need something to watch at midnight, nothing goes down smoother. The Last Boy Scout, maybe Willis's most underrated role, and definitely the gold standard for action movie one-liners.
I would like to hear you scream. Play some rap music.
Picture this, early 90s, and you see one false move in the corner of the video store. You flip it over. Bill Paxton's name rings a bell. Billy Bob Thornton? Just another name. He's years away from Sling Blade in the spotlight. The rest of the cast? All working hard, faces you don't place. No hype, no late-night ads, just a cover, a title, and not much else.
Been on the force down here ever since I was grown. Hell, after 10 years of busting peeping toms and stop sign runners, I'd kind of like to take a crack at the big time.
The movie starts. 3 crooks on the run from LA, tracking trouble all the way to Arkansas. Paxton's playing it straight. Small-town sheriff wants to keep the peace, but he's about to get in deep. Thornton and Tom Epperson wrote this thing in a cheap apartment, hoping for a shot. He even steps in as the heavy. Carl Franklin directs it without frills. No fancy shots, no showy soundtrack, just quiet, steady tension that won't let up. Critics? They caught it, sure. Regular folks? Most never heard about it. You didn't see posters, you didn't hear it on the radio. But the story doesn't care. It's tight, honest, and no one walks out clean. One false move. No big budget, just a crime flick that earns its punch. Air raid sirens outside, fake bug-eyed monsters inside. That's Matinee. Goodman's in full showman mode, dragging a B-movie into a Florida theater while the Cuban Missile Crisis simmers on the news.
It's on red alert. People are already scared.
Exactly. And what a perfect time to open a new horror movie.
Joe Dante sets the story on the kids, who are more worried about what's playing this weekend than the world ending. You get seat buzzers, cheap rubber effects, and parents waiting for updates. The studio released it on Super Bowl weekend, so hardly anyone showed up. But it's not just a nostalgia trip. The movie gets what it's like to be young, a little scared, and still desperate for a good time. Matinee balances Cold War tension with all the small stuff. Crushes, boredom, the excitement of movie magic. If you're looking for a movie that keeps things simple and honest about what it meant to grow up with one eye on the screen and the other on the headlines, This is the one that does it. Midweek in Toronto, a quiet strip club, dim lights, nobody making a scene. Staff and regulars going through the motions, pretending everything's steady. That's Exotica. Adam Egoyan keeps it all close to the vest, doesn't hand you the answers, just lets you sit in the silence, in the tension. There's a tax auditor, a dancer, a DJ, each one circling their own grief, never saying what's really wrong. This isn't a story about shock or scandal. It's about what's missing, and how people keep moving anyway. Hollywood glanced and moved on. But Cannes critics paid attention. Exotica took home the Fipresci Prize, the one for films critics remember long after the lights go up. Sarah Polley filmed her scenes before heading to school. Fits the mood, everyone just trying to hold the seams together. Egoyan leaves it all on the table, no big reveals, no tidy speeches, just real people dealing with what they can't fix. If you're looking for closure, you won't find it here. Exotica is one of those rare films that doesn't force anything. It just sits with you. If you want something honest about grief and longing, this is as real as it gets. Out of all the 90s dramas, this is the one that sticks. Nobody's talking about Devil in a Blue Dress anymore, but it's the one you want if you like your noir with some bite. Denzel Washington plays Easy Rawlins, out of work and behind on his mortgage, just looking for a break in post-war LA. He's smooth, but nothing ever feels safe for him. Not the baroom deals, not the night drives, not even a drink at home. Carl Franklin shoots every street like there's trouble around the corner, and the music's always jazz. The studio barely promoted it, pushed it out between bigger blockbusters, so it got lost in the noise. Then there's Don Cheadle. Shows up halfway, steals the movie, and turns every scene into his.
I got it. Come on. Why is you crazy or is you drunk? Come on.
Am I drunk? You saw me draw that gun in a minute. Check this gun out, drum me.
You don't need to know the old detective novels to get what's going on. Just pay attention to how Denzel carries every bit of pressure and how fast things can turn. If you missed it, fix that. Devil in a Blue Dress is the one where Denzel keeps his cool and Cheadle shows up loud, and it's still one of the sharpest noirs the 90s left behind. Nobody's putting The Long Kiss Goodnight at the top of their action list, but that just means they forgot how good it is. Geena Davis starts out ordinary. Then the story turns sharp, fast, and nothing is what it seems. Samuel L. Jackson comes in broke, quick with a comeback, and always just a step behind the chaos. Shane Black broke records with the Last Boy Scout script, nearly 2 million, wild for the time. For this one, he doubled it. $4 million for a script loaded with punchlines and pure momentum.
Well, what's wrong with the dog?
It's simple. He's been licking his asshole for the last 3 straight hours.
Rennie Harlan directs like there's no speed limit. Cars crash, things blow up, the pace never lets up. The studio tossed it out at Christmas, and it got buried under the big holiday releases. But talk to anyone who loves action. They'll tell you, this is Geena Davis at her sharpest, Samuel L. Jackson totally locked in, and every joke hits as hard as the stunts. If you're after an action movie that never takes a break and knows how to have fun, The Long Kiss Goodnight is the one that always comes through. Out of all the 90s thrillers people overlooked, this is the one that deserves another shot. Most people in the States skipped Hana-bi. You can't blame them. It's not an easy sell. Takeshi Kitano plays a cop whose whole world's falling apart. He barely says a word, just moves from one mess to the next, keeping it all bottled up. The violence? It's sudden, over in a flash, and then everything goes quiet again. Kitano actually survived a bad motorcycle crash before making this. He started painting, and those watercolors show up in the movie, side by side with the gunfire. It's a strange mix. Quiet scenes, quick bursts of violence, back to silence. Won the top prize at Venice, but nobody really talked about it in the US. There's no big speech, no chase, just a man trying to hold things together when nothing's working out. Hana-bi is one of those films that sticks with you. If you want a movie that feels different, one that actually earns its quiet moments, this is Kitano at his best. Not many movies do pain and forgiveness like this one. Two guys find a bag of cash out in the snow, easy setup, But a simple plan doesn't play it simple. Bill Paxton and Billy Bob Thornton look like they just want to get through the day,
That's an airplane.
but you watch them make one bad call after another. Sam Raimi, who usually goes for big monsters and wild effects, keeps it low and cold this time. It's just small town life, a frozen field, and a decision nobody can walk back from. Every move makes things worse, and you feel the pressure start to build, slow and steady. The money's right there, life-changing, sure, but greed and guilt pile up faster than the snow. This wasn't a box office hit, and nobody really talked about it when it dropped, but it's the kind of movie that sticks with you if you catch it late one night. Raimi doesn't waste a scene. If you want a thriller with no gimmicks, just people getting in over their heads, this is it. This is it. A Simple Plan is one of those movies that knows sometimes the worst trouble is the kind you make for yourself. Bringing Out the Dead barely comes up these days, which almost tracks. Most people are surprised to hear Martin Scorsese even directed it. Nicolas Cage looks like he hasn't slept in weeks, just grinding through New York's after hours, half-haunted and barely hanging on. Scorsese links up with Paul Schrader and lets the city unspool. Sharp black comedy, burnout, visions, and that wired, restless pulse that only comes from two guys who know the city.
For light to spare this worthless man. Rise up, I'll be banging.
The movie crashed at the box office. Wrong vibe, wrong moment for the crowds in '99. But every scene snaps. Cage never lets up, and you've got Ving Rhames, Patricia Arquette, John Goodman all in the mix, each one adding to the weird energy. There's this feeling of the city tipping between hope and collapse, and nobody gets out untouched. Out of all the Scorsese films everyone talks about, this one's the quiet outlier. Never got its moment, but just as fierce as anything else he's made. If you want a movie that hits different, one that lingers in your head and feels overdue for another look, Bringing Out the Dead is that overlooked masterpiece, hiding in plain sight. That's a wrap. If you found a hidden gem, hit subscribe and drop your own picks in the comments. Vintageverse is where forgotten films get another shot. So stick around for more deep dives and surprises.